governance, and most people don't realize that if you talk about project governance, you can't really just look at the project itself, because basically the project itself is run under the company, and there are many responsibilities that are involved besides that of the project manager. And to put things in perspective, let me explain the way that we can look at it from the point of view of the Cabinet Office in the UK, for example. Okay? Now down here we've got projects, and the projects, the method used to govern projects, in addition to the techniques and the skills needed by the project manager to run the project successfully, okay? Governance is very often something that needs some kind of methodology, and Prince2 is one of the best methodologies that I know of. At least it's widespread, it's free, and there may be better methodologies, but not well practiced and not well known. So in this case, we shall use Prince2 as an example. Okay? Now in terms of running a project, the project manager really is like the platoon commander in a war. The platoon commander is given orders on what to achieve. He uses all kinds of techniques. He uses his initiative to do the best he can given the resources he has to achieve a specific goal. And that specific goal is very important at the project level, on time, on budget, to the quality of delivering the products. Now, once the product is delivered, whether the product is successfully implemented depends on many other factors which is beyond the control of the project manager, who after a particular project would have his team demobilized, and the project manager and his team members moved on to other projects. Perhaps the same team might work on another project within the company, but conceptually a project, once it has achieved its objective, assuming there's no premature closure, is closed, demobilized, and we know the rest of the story. Now with that, we need another level who actually has to make sure that the benefits accrue to the project's deliverables. Yeah? Once the projects have been delivered its products, then we need to ensure that, for instance, benefits have been accrued, and also the critical point before the project starts of making sure that the project is aligned to some corporate objective in terms of its strategic direction, and that's where the program is. So program management is really about how to ensure that there's good governance in terms of the people involved, the kind of systems involved for escalations and for delegation, etc. So above projects, we would have a layer which we would refer to as program management. Program management is superficially a method to run a collection of projects that has something to do with each other. However, if you refer to the literature by the OGC or the Cabinet Office now, you'll find that there's something beyond that. A project is supposed to deliver a reasonably well-defined deliverable. When we talk about other kinds of deliverables that are less well-defined in terms of the strategic directions of the organization, for instance, like changing the way that people behave, changing the way that customers perceive us, for instance, or increasing market share, that can't be actually achieved usually by one single project. And those kinds of initiatives would take a lot longer than the project. Furthermore, a program type of initiative, as for example in increasing market share, in increasing the way the customers perceive the organization, for instance, then you need a different way of managing it, because you have to accept that your initial ideas may not be well thought through enough. So within a program, you may have early projects that actually is to test the water, to experiment, to get hold of stronger facts before we launch other programs, other projects, to carry on with that program to achieve the objectives. And if we look beyond that, then really at the top level of the organization, we have to have people who can actually make decisions to balance the day-to-day operations, commonly referred to as BAU or business as usual, against the needs of programs and projects. Why? Because as you involve yourself in running projects and programs, we sometimes forget that the business as usual is usually of more importance to keep going. We can't really be putting resources into programs and projects, and if there's a big risk of the daily operations being so badly affected that business cannot continue anymore. You get the message? So therefore, up here we have the top level of governance, which has to decide how you play off these sometimes conflicting demands of business as usual and change initiatives. Now, besides that, if we just look at the change initiatives, any organization has limited resources, people, money, time, etc. And somebody has to be in charge of making sure that the change initiatives that are chosen are the appropriate ones. Yeah? And we know for now from the landmark studies that were done by Markowicz in the stock market analysis area of investments, that we ought to be really looking at our investments as the entire basket. Yeah? We can't say, for example, let's choose the investments that has the highest return, because you need to balance that off with investments into projects that may be mandatory, projects that it's of lower risks and lower returns. Therefore, against that, the need or the wish to have high returns and high risk projects. So normally, a good investment decision is based on looking at things in a collective whole, not an easy task. So therefore, we have what we refer to as portfolio management. Yeah? And please don't get me wrong, portfolio management, I'm not talking about the kind of management approaches that we have in looking at stock markets and bonds and stocks and shares. Those are similar in terms of the fact that it needs investments, usually in money as well as other resources. However, the issues which we encounter in change management are somewhat different from the issues that one would encounter in investment in the stock market and the bonds, for example. Yeah. So therefore, portfolio management is the top level, and we don't really have time in this short little presentation to go into all the details, and which we will follow up with individual items addressing each of these layers, as well as important aspects that needs to ripple through all the three layers in terms of change management. Yeah. And you probably noticed by now that there is actually a sidebar at the side there called which we have put down there, support, and that's addressed by P3O guide from the Cabinet Office that talks about the support facilities which are needed by these three levels. And that is again an interesting development in the last years or so, because hitherto we've been talking about PMO, Project Management Office, and usually a lot of people find that the PMO doesn't really survive long, or it doesn't really prosper in terms of having the Project Management Office developing along the path that it should, because we really cannot be supporting projects without supporting the program level and the portfolio level and expect that Project Management Office to thrive. Yeah? So therefore, we are talking about how do we actually have a support structure? What's a minimal support structure? What are the best practices in terms of supporting all these three layers? Because if you talk about the top layer, who has to depend on the correct information to make proper decisions from the next level and the next level down, in this kind of hierarchical effect, then you would see the reason why we need a support structure that can give some kind of assurance that information is properly organized and filtered upwards and downwards. Information filters up, and decisions plus some information as well actually filters down. Yeah? So that's the support structure. What I put up here is SS for IT. It's not Seow for IT. It is actually abbreviation for soft skills for IT, because if we are talking about an IT environment, then you really need, besides all the hard skills of IT, a lot of soft skills, and some people even refer to project management as a kind of soft skill, which it is. And we need to talk about, negotiation techniques. Why is that important? For example, it's important because when you try to scope your projects, when you try to scope your programs, and when you try to look at various combinations of various initiatives that are put up for proposal to be adopted to fulfill the strategic needs of the organization, then you need to be able to negotiate very intelligently and rationally based on whatever criteria has been chosen by the organization. So therefore, we look at that. What about presentation skills? Presentation skills to me isn't talking about a guy who stands up in front of a stage, in front of lots of people, and trying to impress them or to entertain them. Yeah, that may very well be a little part of the presentation. However, how do we actually present facts and figures in an interesting way, and in a way that people can assimilate very quickly. Yeah, because at the end of the day, there's just too much information, too much data out there, and therefore all these soft skills are very, very important. Yeah, interpersonal skills as well as communication skills. Now, presentation, whether you are talking about stand up and deliver, or you're talking about writing a report, whether you're talking about answering emails, for example, or text messaging, all these are important aspects to grease the wheel of all these layers of change initiatives. Well, I think that's all the time we have for now, and that's me, Simon Seow, signing off. See you again at the next episode.